Impact Collaborative. I'm always excited, but I'm especially excited about this one. Why is it a big impact collaborative? Because it's about you, you, you. So many of you who are joining us today, and so many people who will be seeing this afterwards. Uh, the big you adds up to the big us. Your focus is our power, as we say at your Women's Fund Miami-Dade, and we get to talk about the big we today. So a lot of excitement. I love partnership, and there's nothing more important than the partnership that we have with all the folks who invest in us, our impact partners, our founder, Marilyn Gladstone, our amazing board of directors, in all of their names and our amazing team names. We welcome you all. But somebody else is going to help me welcome today, somebody who is instrumental in turning this town purple this November. Rebecca Fishman-Lipsey, take the stage with me. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to start the day with all of you, and I love that you meet so regularly to talk about the issues that matter in our community. Thank you for giving me the stage in the month of months. It is November. It is giving season. I know everyone who's here this morning knows it already, but I just wanted to have the chance to look you all in the eyes and thank you for everything that you do to strengthen Miami. You know, if you're here, you're in the group of folks who champion this community as a part of your regular ritual. But this is the month where we try to make sure that everybody who lives in Miami steps up for this community, learns about the issues that matter, gets involved, and gives back. Together, we had, I think it was over 109,000 donations last year to causes in our community. And the question is, and we look each year to see what are the issue areas that are getting the attention and the support and the resources they need, and what needs more love and support. And we just encourage everybody who's here, don't just come to the party, bring people with you to the party, echo loudly this month what you care about, the work that you're passionate about, and help us make sure that everybody in Miami is getting involved in giving back. We're doing something because we see that there's a lot of strain on nonprofits because of government shortfalls and cuts and freezes and just when when the climate economically is rocky, people sometimes give less. And so we feel a responsibility to make sure our nonprofits don't end the year with less, that they have everything they need for the year ahead. And that means we need to grow the audience. And so the big thing that we're focusing on this year in audience creation is launching early. We've always had a quiet early giving, but this year we're launching with loud early giving. So be loud with us. We have a 5K race. I know many of you are going to be there, I see. And I'm excited to cheer you on as you walk or run or just join for the free festival. But the intention is for every cause to have an extra opportunity to bring people out, for you all to have an extra chance to share your love for all the things that you care about. So thank you for making this space and for being my partner in activating Miami, and just thank you for giving loudly. And I am so excited about the book and the topics that you're featuring today. So looking forward to digging in with you. So thanks for giving me the space to say hello.
Thank you for all that you do. And we are not alone here. There are so many people in this virtual audience who've been speaking, who touch, and talk with all the people that are leveraging resources. So welcome to all of our incredible friends. Thanks to you all for being here. So usually, we tell everybody we've got 4 pillars and we've got 4 programs, and everybody knows that we usually do a cameo here for our research and data. But Viviana's not going to take the spotlight today. We want to make sure that we give enough time to all of our amazing panelists and keynote. The 2 things I'm going to talk about instead are there are many ways to give, and that is a fact. So we have the executive director of Jewelry for Good here on with us. Go on into our website, look at the chat. You know that you can take that tarnished silver tray and you can get 100% of its value off of your taxes. And I, for one, am not in the mood to pay a lot of taxes this year. So I'm going to do more donating than I've ever done before. And my dad just passed, so I don't think he's going to get so mad that we melt down a little bit of silver. So I want you to know we're not selling jewelry. We're just taking that broken earring or that broken chain, and Jewelry for Good is one of those many ways that you can do it. Also on Giving Tuesday on December 2nd, we'll be talking about how DAFs and stock donations can help your tax return. We'll let you know how you can sign up for that as well. So on we go now to the real, um, uh, not meat and potatoes. My daughter's a vegetarian. Let me see. To the real game here. The real game is our amazing author, leader, founder of so many incredible initiatives, the amazing Hallie Lee. Hallie, can you please take it over? Welcome.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here. And oh, I'm trying to do my poll, but I'm going to put that away. Maria, thank you so much for inviting me, and to Danny for your care to get us all here this morning. I'm in mountain time with my mom and dad, so it's 7 in the morning for me. So I am feeling very virtuous and wide awake and about to do some stretches with you guys. Thank you. It's amazing to learn about what the Women's Fund of Miami-Dade is doing, the 4 pillars of work that you do, and the AIM Alliance for Infant and Maternal Health. It's so cool. And it reminds me of when I was a board member of the New York Women's Foundation, and I'm so pleased and honored to share the stage with Anna, who leads the New York Women's Foundation, because the women's philanthropy movement was kind of my philanthropy college. I was an ED of a domestic violence service provider in New York City in the Korean American community. And the very first grant I ever wrote in my life was to the New York Women's Foundation. And Anna, you guys funded me, and A Young Choi and I, the board chair, and I, the brand new ED, we cried because we needed that $50,000 general operating grant so bad, and it was just the perfect timing for us. So I learned so much about the power of women coming together around kitchen tables across the city of New York, my beloved city, new home, or I didn't grow up there, but it's my home now. So it's really cool to be here. And the Women's Foundation of New York Women's Foundation remains a really important sort of political home for me in this big, beautiful city of New York. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from my sisters in the women's funding movement, Anna, Ruby, and Laura in a few. But I'm here to talk about my book. Maria asked me to introduce myself. You can read a lot of boring things about me on the links that Danny shared. But I'm a mom, a daughter, a sister, an auntie, a partner, a lover, a big dog lover. I keep bees on my roof. I'm a best friend. I'm a pal. I'm a bestie, and I come from the people who eat kimchi 3 times a day. I'm going to share a little bit of data that I think Laura's going to share more later, but I wanted to drop a few pieces of data into this conversation before I launch into my book. Giving USA is a big annual survey of individual giving philanthropy in the United States, and the trends have been sort of down, slightly going down in terms of how much individuals in America are giving. It's going up a little bit, but the past few years have been going down. And the bummer for me in that data is that the primary drivers of individual giving in the United States are billionaires. And to me, that's not a very democratic form. So that's a piece of context for my book. Giving circles, which is groups of people coming together to do good together. They volunteer together, they give together, they vote together, they march and protest and are civically engaged together. To me, giving circles and collective giving are a bright spot in the philanthropic data that has been trending downwards and has been trending upwards in terms of billionaires as a percentage of individual giving in America. In a 2023 landscape of collective giving, giving circles and collective giving are a field that is booming in our sector, with the number of giving circles in the United States tripling between 2016 and 2023, counting about 4,000 plus giving circles across the country with 370,000 members. This is a movement that's powered by and for women. 80% of the giving circles in the landscape are primarily women, for women, women coming together to do good to the benefit of women, girls, and families. And 60% of the giving circles and collective giving organizations in the survey are solely by and for women. These groups collectively gave over $3 billion in that 4-year period, and this movement is expected to double again over the next 5 years in terms of people engaged and dollars moved. The research also found that people who do good together by linking arms and doing it together, we volunteer more, we vote more, we run for office more, and we give more, obviously. and we're happier. And I think that has something to do with the feeling of efficacy that comes when you do something with your friends, neighbors, colleagues, coworkers, book group mates, whatever it is. And in this moment, we had some really good news this week in elections across the country. We have at least 2 new governors of states that are women, a lieutenant governor in Virginia who's a woman, and a Muslim American woman, the first Muslim American person to hold a statewide office in the United States, which is so cool. And it's really important for us to remember that it is, in my opinion, organizations like the Women's Fund of Miami-Dade that are powering the grassroots that are going to bring the durable power building that's going to bring the political change that we want to see, and more representation buy-in for women in this country. So I wrote this book, and you see a picture of it on your screen. Thank you for sharing that, Danny. And the reasons I wrote this book are many, but one, I just had a lot of stories that I wanted to share. And the stories in my book are about regular non-billionaire people who are coming together to do good together. And if you remember that context of so much of the measured philanthropic giving in the United States being powered by billionaires, I felt like it was an important counterbalance to share stories of regular non-billionaire people who were moving lots of dollars by doing it together. So many stories that I wanted to get out into the world because I've been doing this work for 20 years. My giving circle, the Asian Women Giving Circle, turned 20 years old this summer, and I can just hardly believe it, you know. But Anna knows, like it's hard. It's such an important sisterhood for me within the city of New York. In addition to the philanthropic context, which is just a teeny piece of context given our big, vast country, the other pieces of context that were kind of driving me or undergirding the reasons for me to write this book are one, the extreme concentration of wealth in this country. And there's a reason why billionaires are powering so much of our individual philanthropy, and that's because they have so much money. And, you know, philanthropy as a formal sector was born during the first Gilded Age in America. And if you think about Carnegie and the funding of public libraries and the Rockefeller Foundation and the Ford Foundation, you know, the eponymous foundations that still bear the names of these giant, you know, these really rich men. We are living in another Gilded Age in this country with wealth disparity that is even more extreme than the first time around. There's a lot of reasons why it's not smart to rely on billionaires, in my opinion, to solve almost anything. Anand Giridharadas and Rob Reich wrote books about 5 years ago that really make the argument, and I agree with it, that very, very wealthy people in generally and here in the United States do not have much incentive to change the systems that made them very, very wealthy to begin with. And I think it's a very sensible argument and it makes a lot of sense. There are, of course, exceptions to this, like Abby Disney, who was the board chair of the New York Women's Foundation when I was a baby board member. She's part of a group called Patriotic Millionaires that basically wants to be taxed more. And I think Zoran Mamdani is going to make that happen in New York City, which is awesome in my opinion. So there's this extreme wealth concentration. There's reasons to not rely on billionaires because of that fundamental truth for most of them that they don't want to change the systems that help them get so rich to begin with. And to that very common sense argument, I add my own in my book, which is that to rely on very, very wealthy people for anything, including philanthropically or to fund our organizations, inspires a sort of passivity in the rest of us. And our system does not work when we are passive. Our system works best and perhaps only when we care enough to get educated, link arms with people who share our passions and values and the things that keep us up at night, and then do a thing together about that issue. And I read in my book that the actions that we take as groups doesn't have to be, these actions do not have to be UN level actions, you know, they can be, here's a simple one that my group did when October 7th happened, which was horrible in all the different ways it was horrible in our city and around the country and around the world. Like lots of groups with a conscience, we didn't know what to do. We knew we wanted to do something, but we needed to talk and just like hash through. So my giving circle and my girlfriends, we went to a restaurant that was opened by a Palestinian woman in Brooklyn, where I live, And we wanted to support her as an entrepreneur, as a woman business owner, and as someone whose people were about to be thrust into this war that is ongoing. And she had family who were going to be at risk. And, members of my group are Jewish, they're Asian American, but they are also Jewish. And we also wanted to make space to talk about all the complexities of identity that are held within my giving circle. So we didn't solve anything, this is not like a UN level action, but we are a sisterhood and we needed a place to talk where we could be honest and maybe say things that were hard to say in other spaces. So that's just one example of an action that we can do because we had this foundational trust with one another over the years that we've built. So the wealth concentration is one piece of context for my book. And then Maria mentioned Big Phil, which is my nickname for big billionaire top-down philanthropy. And I nicknamed that person Big Phil because it's often a white guy. Sometimes it's a dead white guy. And Big Philippa is making some moves lately, which is awesome. But that style of philanthropy can also sometimes feel top-down. The other context that I'll mention quickly, because time is just flying. I'm so sorry, Maria, is loneliness. We are in an epidemic of loneliness in this country. And Dr. Vivek Murthy wrote beautifully about this as he was outgoing Surgeon General of the United States. And there's lots in his report, which I encourage you to read. And he wrote a beautiful letter in People magazine that summarizes it. But one of the cure for loneliness is belonging. And the way to build belonging doesn't have to cost $1 million. It can be literally coming around a kitchen table to do good together, inviting people over. The metaphor of a kitchen table runs through my book, and it's a metaphor I love because kitchen tables have been the locus of a lot of powerful organizing in America, always, especially by and for women, people of color, immigrants, and queer folks. And I love this metaphor because most of us have a kitchen table, not all in New York City because it's small apartments are the norm. But if we don't have a kitchen table, I can go to borrow Maria's maybe, and we can gather people. And to the metaphor of a kitchen table, I add a tweak, which is add a leaf or two, add some seats around your kitchen table if it's going to be a locus of powerful organizing, which it can be, to invite people who are just outside your group of regulars. And it's important to add those seats so that we don't just reify the things that we think we already know, and that we're always animating ourselves with people who have slightly different perspectives, even onto the same issues. And I'll close with one short story of my mother-in-law, who is 96 years old. And when she was the spry age of like 92, maybe, she learned of a seat in her rural Connecticut state legislative body that was potentially flippable from a man who had held it for a while, who was sort of an old boys network guy, and the challenger was a young woman from her party, and she was a more progressive candidate than the incumbent. So my then 92-year-old mother-in-law called the campaign office, and together with them, they hatched this plan that we call her Aka. Aka could use her kitchen table to host weekly tea parties during the summer leading up to the November election. Her kitchen table seats 8, so if there's a spot for the candidate Maria and a spot for Aka, that leaves 6 spots around her table for people in her town and the neighboring 6 or 7 towns that make up this catchment area. So she figured she hosted about 12 tea parties every week for the summer leading up to November. And she hosted about 72 people, she figures, over those 12 tea parties. The election happened. It was so close. It went to a recount. During the recount, the challenger, Maria, beat the incumbent by 66 votes. In the debriefs that happened, the campaign office and Aka really think that her tea parties, where she hosted 72 discrete individuals, made a material difference in flipping that seat to the party that was more representative of working families in this part of Connecticut. And Aka was 92 years old at the time, and she remains feisty and pissed and active and engaged and doing all the things in her part of the world. And I love this story because, first of all, I love her. And secondly, if a 92-year-old woman in rural Connecticut can use her kitchen table as the locus of this powerful organizing to flip a seat, then certainly the rest of us can too. I'm going to close by saying thank you for having me. Relationships are infrastructure, as the story of Aka really shares. The summary, I think, of my book is literally like look up, link arms, and do a thing together. Thank you for letting me be here with you guys. I'm really looking forward to a
Stay
lot of
at this table because we want you for the Q&A. We want you for the Q&A. Our team meets at the kitchen table, literally. We're frugal. We're frugal. And we always say that your women's fund is like a central square, right? And so even when we do our presentations, we have it juts out into the audience because everybody comes, some come from north, some come from southwest, some come from the far east, but we all come together with something in common to leverage resources on behalf of women and girls. So I feel like Women's Fund, we always say it's your Women's Fund Miami-Dade, is a spiritual giving circle. And there's no question that economics, when you give to any women's fund, you're giving, especially unrestricted dollars, you're totally, it's one big old giving circle. So this is amazing. How does this webinar work? Everybody participates. We've got an amazing audience today. You're doing the polls, you're in the chat, you're sharing resources, you're asking questions in the Q&A that we're going to get to later. So without further ado, let's go to our first panelist, impossibly in 2 minutes or less. Anna, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, I love short introductions. Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me and thank you for organizing this conversation. I bow to Holly, just want to say like secret and sacred devotion, just as I do to Ruby. You talked about partners, colleagues. I'm so delighted to meet and more depth my partners in Miami, you, Maria, and of course, the incredible Laura, who holds the sky and creates the sky with all of us. I work in New York City. I have the best job in New York City, which is working at the New York Women's Foundation. Laura has the second one, I think. The rest is, I'm follower of everybody. Followership is underrated, but it's super valuable. And thank you, Maria. We'll talk more during the morning.
Thank you, Anna. Ruby, can you do the same thing?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ruby Bright, and I served as the president and CEO of the Women's Foundation for a Greater Memphis for 22 years. I stepped down a couple of years ago, but very much actively involved obviously as a donor, but also as a community voice for why I invest in women and why I invest in women and children. I want to also acknowledge and express my appreciation to all of the women that are a part of the panel introductions and all. And cannot uh, I cannot elevate how much it means to be on a panel with my colleague and friend Anna Oliveira. We are partners in crime. And so many things that is good partnerships and great worry that shakes up, and we are able to pull down resources that we can put back into community. And I think that that is part of the framing for why women's foundations and why women's philanthropy means so much. And I hope that we'll be able to talk more about that as we move on in this discussion. We want to be sure, I can speak for myself, especially Anna, that we want to be sure that we are responding to the questions and also illuminating the concerns that you may have in your community, but also to celebrate the successes as well as great examples of that can be replicated in other communities that would elevate the work of women's foundations and women-led organizations.
Thank you, Ruby. We're so thrilled to have your expertise and insights. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being a part. Laura, can you introduce yourself in 2 minutes or less?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for having me on the call today. Like many women, I wear a few different hats. So I am the director of grants of the Amplify Her Foundation, which is a private grant-making organization in New York City that supports the leadership development of women and girls. But I'm also the founder and president of LGR Consulting, which is a philanthropic consulting firm that provides strategy and advisory support services to high net worth individuals, their families, and the organizations that they support, primarily through periods of transition and transformation. And then lastly, I am the very proud co-author alongside both Anna and Ruby of The Uprising of Women in Philanthropy, which I'm excited to share with you today. And just want to say again, I've really grown up in this movement alongside folks like Anna, Hallie, and Ruby, who've taught me so much and who've really made my life and my career possible. All of that activism 20, 30 years ago have made what I do today possible. So just a big appreciation. Very blessed to be part of this work with them.
Thank you so much. So this format really works because now we're going to go to Anna, and in 3 minutes or less, we're going to say, what do we need to know about the status of philanthropy? And we've got lots of colleagues here that run their own, all kinds of foundations and kind of things. What can you share with us, Anna? What do we need to know?
So philanthropy is a very big universe, right? First of all, very large foundations, very small foundations, public foundations, as Holly was beautifully describing what I would say people's movements in philanthropies and giving and seizing of that. But philanthropy as a whole, if we look at it, we zoom out as a whole, does wonderful things. Is the love of humanity. But women in general, we haven't been really loved in that humanity concept there. I'm just going to say that. We've been minimally loved. From a statistical point of view, it's an abhorrent number of 2% or less of investment in women in general. But we are not a cookie cutter women in general, right? And then you see like I'm going to say the neglect of communities, of Asian communities and investment, Black communities in diaspora, Latino communities I'm part of, Native communities, queer communities. And philanthropy has a long way to go. And what we are about, and you are about in Miami, and we're about together, is accelerating that. Is saying it must happen now. But, and most important, I would say, what we need to know about philanthropy, it's not all the same. So we all need to know our place in philanthropy, and we all need to be very clear about how to leverage each other, as you were talking about before, and maximize the duty of our missions, right? And it's very hard to work in philanthropy. Philanthropy, Holly was talking about the indecent, I'm going to say indecent concentration of wealth. Philanthropy is also a product of that. So morally speaking, we are semi-compromised in that way. So I think that working in philanthropy requires that awareness for all of us. It doesn't matter where we are, requires that awareness and requires on a daily basis the mitigation of that inequality, and that privilege that philanthropy has created for all of us. So we need to know that it's a very big field, that it's a troubled field, that it has incredible potential to shift and change the world, but that we need to be really thoughtful about it. We can't just be rote and mechanical about it. We don't want to reproduce with philanthropy the very experiences and structures that create the problems. So how we do philanthropy, not just doing philanthropy, not just getting monies out there, which is really important, but how we do that is really important.
Thank you so much, Anna. Brilliant. Ruby, tell us, what do we need to know from your perspective? You've led such an amazing organization.
Well, I think that Anna has really explained it in a broader manner, the importance of women's philanthropy. I would add to that the power that we are yet to really harness around the strength of collective giving, as well as collectively pulling together resources for a cause. And to be focused, to be very, very focused. Women's foundations, women's funds, women-led organizations live true to their mission. And it all starts and with that kitchen table kind of effect of, everybody puts in the pot, and we know that we cannot do this work without resources. And we also recognize that we must start with ourselves first. And I think that a lot of the attributes are just the actions that we all take are natural for us, but they're not traditional when you look at the greater field of philanthropy. And I see that as a strength, particularly when we start to bring young women and girls into at the table or into learning the importance of giving. I was thrilled to be a part of the book, that the uprising of women's philanthropy, with the authors, just to talk about philanthropy in the many ways that we show up as women, and how we are able to, I would say, our return on investment, for every dollar we raise and put out there in the community, our impact is many times tenfold. Not only that, we're bringing more people in with us. And I know this, and I always share that when you help a woman, you help a family, and you obviously help the world. But women will reach back and help someone else. So, philanthropy was fairly new to me, 25 years ago, in terms of even using it as in terminology or talking about it. We talked about giving. But there's an empowerment there that I think many women do not embrace. As a matter of fact, sometimes many women of wealth step back, and feel that they should not share it. And I believe that we should tout very loudly the importance of philanthropy and that we are philanthropists.
It's so exciting. Doesn't it feel good? I don't know. I'm feeling really good right now. I think everybody who's here, I can feel everybody's in the audience. Thank you, Ruby. Thank you. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll have some more feel good, to share. So I think just to give a little bit more context about the book and why it was written. So the global women's funding movement began about 50 years ago with the founding of the first women's fund, which in the late 70s, early 80s, groups like the Ms. Foundation, the Women's Sports Foundations, it was groups of women coming together around kitchen tables, recognizing their exclusion from traditional philanthropy and recognizing that in order to fund their advancement, they were going to need to pull their resources and do this themselves. And so it really covers the last 50 years of this movement and really talking about a number of the different trials and tribulations that women around the world have faced and how collectively women have come together to address those issues and solve those issues in their communities. So it's a playbook in many ways about how to confront authoritarianism, how to confront the rollback of reproductive rights, how to confront racism and sexism in our societies. And so it's I think a great resource and a tool for us at this moment in time in what we're experiencing here in our country as a way forward. But I think something else that's really exciting. So Anna mentioned the 2% statistic, which hasn't moved in years. But I think there's something else that's happening at a global level that I think presents a real opportunity, and that's the great wealth transfer. And so the Great Wealth Transfer refers to a historic shift of trillions of dollars of assets from the baby boomer generation to younger generations over the coming decades. And it is expected to be the largest intergenerational transfer of wealth in history. And young people, so Gen X and millennials, are set to inherit this wealth, and women are set to inherit this wealth. So according to McKinsey, about $30 trillion in wealth is going to be passed to women by 2030. So in the next 5 years, right? This is a prediction. And what we know is that women give differently, and women give in ways that really lead to social justice changes and systemic change. And so this shift is not just numeric, it's really going to be a cultural shift away from traditional models of transactional philanthropic giving to more values-aligned giving towards social justice and towards social inequality. So this, I think, also presents a really historic moment for women to step into their power, to recognize the power that they hold. And as Hallie and Anna said, it doesn't have to be these huge billion-dollar gifts that these large philanthropists are giving. It can be these tiny actions of showing up in your community, showing up for one another, and using the full scope of your resources and leveraging them for the women and girls in your community.
Amazing. It is very exciting, is it not? So we usually say now this is the fishing pole part. We never say like, what's the state of the union? And then they say, so what are we going to do about it? So what can we do about it, Anna?
So, during the writing of this book, one of the great things that happened was the opportunity to see the incredible local competence of women's foundations and an incredible ability that we have because we're close to the ground. I see a little poll and a quiz there, but I'm going to knock it up for a moment. So the incredible connectedness. And when we are talking even about women's philanthropy, I just wanted to say that the kind of women's philanthropy that we're talking about is that kind that you are talking about at the central square, a central square that is illimited in its inclusion, in its size, right? That place where people, you said before, people can belong. People are not alone, as Holly said. We understand our condition as also, all those little grains of rice that come together to both physically and spiritually and unflinchingly feed our movements. So what are the great assets that women's foundations bring? We are very locally competent. We do what we call by and for. We are from our own communities and we are working with our own communities by and for our own communities. We are very proud to value our diversities, value our, this colorful coming together. Think of us not as a, blended puree soup, but think of us as a, paella, for instance, all little different tastes, but we come together really nicely. So that's really important. Holly talked about community giving and the idea that, using our capital, however much it is, together is a collective action of creating the world we want to see. It is like voting. You mentioned that before. It's exactly like voting. When 66 votes or something like that make a difference, $66 make a difference, $600 make a difference. It's not just $6 billion. So that is the spirit. It is what we do in the kitchen table. It is what we do daily in our lives. By definition, we have had the privilege of being socialized in a gender construction in which we are problem solvers. And we make do with what we have. What collective giving is saying, let's just not just respond to what isn't, but let's create what must be together. Let's be bold. So when you talked about the purple, which I loved hearing about, look at that. typically, another thing we notice in the book, nobody believes that the changes we are up to are possible, but ourselves. We look like, oh my God, a small group of people are going to put, little money together and do. Yes. And that's exactly how it happens. And women's foundations are the home for that, provide the means for that, provide the results for that. We can do for large foundations what you are not equipped to do. We're close to the ground. We trust people. We take risks, so to speak, but we mitigate those risks with the embrace of relationships. Holly said relationships are infrastructure. The type of philanthropy we do is about people. It's not about capital so much. We don't measure success on the amount of money only. We measure success on the impact, leadership, and transformation of the human beings and groups that we invest in. So I'm putting a pitch here for the folks in the audience that work in other foundations to look at women's foundations, beginning with Miami, as a partner that brings other competencies to the table, that needs you, but that you equally need. And I'm putting a pitch here for all of us who are working people to come together in our giving opportunities like Holly talked about. And I'm putting a pitch for our high net worth partners here today to understand that alone you can't do it either, because you need the connection and the meaning. And I know you're looking for that purpose. So it is important to see the transfer of wealth, but it's important to figure out that we need to do it together. And the purpose of it has to be a purpose of advancing all of our issues beyond, for justice, creating the world that we want to see now. I think it's an irresistible proposition.
As we'd say in Miami, que rico.
Yeah.
There's some
rico.
good stone soup. There's some Haitian potage. There's some paella going on here, and it's delicious to all be together. Ruby, what do you cook up in Memphis? What can we do?
Well, I loved the response that Anna gave, and Anna is also someone who the glass is always running over. I love that enthusiasm, not half full, but running over with opportunity. I join her in that. I think that the opportunity for us as a collective and to have a greater impact is to continue to share together, build the collective of our impact in the community with organizations collectively. Anna and I have been together over the years with several collaborations, whether that's about prosperity together, meaning that we galvanized many of our women's foundations to make a commitment to raise $100 million over 5 years. And it wasn't the dollar value as much as it was how we collectively came together to illustrate, at the White House, that we are a force to be reckoned with, and that we are the people who are making a difference on the ground. And we are not going to our communities advocating or telling them what they should need or what they should be doing, and how they should be helped, but really talking with them, working with them, sharing information and learning from them what their needs are. How do we walk together to address those needs? And I think for women's foundations around philanthropy is that being a part of a network, we bring the wealth of our knowledge along with the funds, the intellectual capital, the high level of influence, and the unapologetic approach to asking for what we want and expecting that to happen. And then what we have to back that up are the stories, the many stories that have been shared by those who are benefactors, as well as those who have played a major role in making a strong impact. And I will go back to the Uprising of Philanthropy, the book that we put together. It's there that we were able to talk about the importance of women's philanthropy, but also share examples across the world, actually. A lot of focus in the US, but across the world around how we created change, how we demonstrated leadership, and how we move communities forward, especially women and girls in marginalized communities, how we elevate leadership. I think that that's something that is really, really important, is that as being a part of women's funds, women's foundations, women groups collectively, we have a significant amount of collective power and influence. And we are very strategic in how we do that. I think the next step in terms of where we are where we are, is that we continue to galvanize, we continue to share our collaborative efforts, and we continue to demand changes that do not support elevating the economic security of women and girls in our communities.
Thank you so much, Ruby. We often say, if the systems weren't originally designed well to support women and girls, and it's not the only lens that needs to be put on community, but the gender lens is a very important one. So sometimes you got to throw away that system, but most of the time it just takes some upgrading and some engineering, and nobody does that alone. So amen to some systems change. Got some amazing folks here who do direct service, and then some of us who work on systems, and all of us are working together. So you said it so well. Amazing. Thank you so much. Laura, what can we do?
Yeah. So as you just said, I know that there's a lot of social impact leaders on the call today. And so as much of our conversation is focused on how we as women can really step into our power as philanthropists, it's also about how do we do what Hallie has said, build that relational infrastructure to bring more women into this movement with us and into the organizations and in support of the work that we're doing in the community. So I do think that there's something about, again, I mentioned the great wealth transfer, once in a generation opportunity with women inheriting trillions of dollars in wealth. So how do we bring those women into this movement with us? Treating women as equal partners, not just as a gift source. Women don't write checks the way that men do. Women really want to be part of something. They want to be at the decision-making table. Offer participatory opportunities for women to get involved in your work. Allow them to come in and co-create, to learn, to participate in site visits and other peer networks. And women really want to belong to something. They don't just want to give to something, right? So I think this is really about how do we bring more women in? How do we democratize philanthropy and make everyone feel part of this movement and the work that we do? This is our moment to leverage our power, not only to be philanthropists, but to be leaders in our communities. We have the collective power. We're going to have the resources. So how we bring those two things together in service of social change? I know that that's something that we can all do together.
Amazing. Hallie, we asked you to join the kitchen table again for this Q&A portion. So I'll be punting them to you all. I do have a couple questions that folks, everybody knows that these go live, but then they're recorded. And there's some folks who, weren't able to be here. And the first question I'm going to take from there, this is one from a donor who's not a huge philanthropist. They're not Big Phil, but they're not just an individual donor. They have a family foundation that's moderate, right? So they're really involved in some of the initiatives that the Women's Fund is doing. And they're asking, you with your national expertise, is there a way for a smaller family foundation to get in touch with some of the larger national foundations and ask for help matching some of the funds that they'd like to do for some of the kind of piloting initiatives that the Women's Fund is doing here locally? Who'd like to take that?
I love this question. I'm going to jump in. I think this moment was built for you. You know, the large organizations, large institutions have giant marks on their back. It's a hard time to be the leader of a university or a big national um, foundation. So small family foundations, individuals who come together as groups, this is our moment because we don't have the same targets on our back as they do. I mean, it's a terrible time and we have to be smart about how we navigate it. So we can come together in a kind of stealthy way that some of the larger players cannot. One of my favorite hacks, Anna mentioned it, that a lot of the wealthy people we work with through Freedom School for Philanthropy, one of my favorite hacks is just to match women's funds around the country because they're getting money to the grassroots that most of us don't even know about. Someone I met likes to give grants to the organizations that just missed getting the grants from the Fund for Women in Miami-Dade or the New York Women's because they've gone through an incredible vetting process and they just didn't make it, but they're so worthy and deserving and doing incredibly important work. I also love it when individuals or small family foundations match giving circle networks. Community Investment Network is a network of mostly Black, all POC giving circles, mostly in the US South. Match them, that's a great way to get money into the grassroots. So I'll stop there.
Terrific. Anybody else? Anna, do you have something to add there? Ruby?
Ditto. And I think that what Laura was also saying about the opportunities to act and that we are our solutions. Not only, Holly is so correct, we are under the radar of, who matters, right? So at this time, that benefits us. Right? At this time, this benefits us. And I also want to say, I'm fresh from a mayoral election here in New York City, that if you looked a year ago, you would not think that it would be possible to get that kind of voter engagement, of multi-generational engagement, and produce results that are more aligned with dealing with the economic inequality, the racial and immigration issues that are in the city. How does that happen? That happens because giving circles and women's foundations, in our case, we consistently fund those who are moving those issues. So it's really important. If you want to have a real good return on investment, work with a women's foundation, work with a giving circle, because they are consistent and they will tell you how things are going. And they also provide something very important, which is the people that are doing the work can rely on that giving. And therefore, they can focus on their work more and produce more results to all of us. They don't have to be begging for dollars to the same people. When you get a grant from a giving circle or a women's foundation, you are getting donations from and contributions from hundreds of people, but you're not reporting to 100 of people. You're not having to ask 100 people for the same amount. So it really helps with the engagement, that ownership. And there's something that I want to add to what Holly and Laura and Ruby have said. When people are engaged, donating, co-creating, it's not something that disappears. It becomes part of the person. So it doesn't matter if it is easier times or harder times, if the person is in this organization or that organization, they are that, engaged, involved, and they will always propagate that. So the return on investment has an incredible sustainability.
Oh, I agree.
Amen.
I totally agree about matching funds. There's a great opportunity for bringing on new donors, but also donor relations and donor cultivation, and set the pace for getting funding on certain issues, because different donors have priorities around, what they would like to invest in. And I think all donors, especially women donors, want to be a part of the solution. So they want to be engaged as they give. Memphis Women's Foundation over the years, very successful with match giving. And then also on a national level, and I've been in several national collaboratives where match funding was an opportunity for us.
Amazing. All right, lightning round. We've got 3 questions, some here, some there. 1, how can the philanthropic sector ensure that women of all backgrounds, especially Black women and women from underrepresented communities, are not just beneficiaries, but key decision makers in shaping giving priorities and making philanthropy inclusive as well? Who wants to take that? Ruby?
So I think that's a great question. The how can someone, I think that you ask how can I? I'll take it like that. The question was asked, the person asking was said, how can I, or how can I help others? And you go out there and you do it. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid or expect that you are not welcome or would be accepted. And then the other is looking for a mentor. There should be someone that you admire. You see them from afar, or you've connected, really connect with those, or you want to connect. Reaching any one of us, it's not that difficult.
Let me give you a
Sometimes we go
clue.
through all
One
the
of our
trouble
board
of trying to figure
members,
out how can I, meet this person, or how can I get their telephone number? And we are 1 to 3 contacts away from anyone that we want to connect with. We just have to have the action to do so. So yeah, I would say, connect with people and know what you want to do and how you want to do it, but also be committed.
Ruby, we have a board member who's one of the co-founders of the Women of Color Empowerment Institute, Michelle Austin Pammies, and she's actually in the audience today. So Michelle, I'm going to just throw you under the bus and have everybody look up your organization, and anybody who's interested, they can find one of the people in your mentoring circle. And there we go, because Ruby just said it. So let's share that. I'm going to take one that's actually in the chat. What can be done when the small family foundations are held by the patriarch's only male heirs, leaving the female heirs of the family's wealth out of the decision-making capabilities? Good question. Who wants to take it?
Gonna say hire an attorney. Get some legal counsel representation to advise you. I mean, obviously this depends on your locale, where you're situated, but I think there's certainly a legal recourse, but also there's ways, I think, depending on the family dynamics, for you to have influence within the foundation, even if you're not a wealth holder, and that could be through grant making privileges or through relationships, leveraging your networks, bringing your community into the work. So I think there are ways to still do the work when you may not have necessarily decision-making power and authority, but I would recommend getting some advice on how to get that.
We have about 60 seconds left for this one, because I have to say goodbye too. Is a nonprofit org who raises funds mostly from corporate foundations. What's the best way to approach her to engage a giving circle? Hallie, do you want to take that one?
In corporate
To
foundation?
engage, yeah, they usually get an org that gets most of their funds from corporations. How can they reach a giving circle? You can answer, and then I'll give a local clue.
Okay, cool. Well, some corporations have giving circles. Some of the employee resource groups, like the Asian American employees of the blah blah, or women's employees of the blah, they sometimes form giving circles. So that's one way. And then there's a national directory of giving circles where you can search by zip code. That's hosted at philanthropytogether.org. I'll drop it in the chat when Maria's saying goodbye. Those are 2 quickies. And for the person with the patriarch, there's some organizations like the National Center for Family Philanthropy. It's a national network of small family, a lot of them unstaffed, philanthropies, and there are lots of families who are dealing with this very same issue. Sometimes it's a matriarch, it's often a patriarch, but that might be a good community to learn, to check out and go to.
And locally, I'll say I'm a member of 100 Plus Women Who Care. There are many, many chapters. I think there are 5 across Miami-Dade County, or at least across South Florida. I schlepp to the Miami Beach, so I get to see my Miami Beach friends there. And they laugh at me. I know one of the founders is here today, Kim, if you're still on. They laugh because almost everybody who comes to present, I know. Like, right, like 2 nights ago was Miami Diaper Bank and the Lucy Project who were presenting. So you throw those names in a hat. I can help to nominate you if you're small, if you're under like $2 million, like we are. And there you go. So unfortunately, we're at 10. This is your women's fund, and we don't care if you live in Timbuktu or the West Coast or the East Coast. Please know that we're your friends here from wherever you are. We come together once a month here at this virtual village square. What you need to know, what you can do to leverage resources on behalf of women and girls. We do nothing alone. We do all of it together. And this has been an amazing session. None of it can be done, as these amazing, very grounded women say, we can't do it without fuel. None of us can. So whether large or small, showing up with, what are the 5 T's, Hallie?
Time, talent, treasure, testimony, and ties. And
Yes.
there's more.
So we're tying and woven together. I'm taking a page from your book for when we meet over the holidays. I'm taking a ball of yarn. I'm going to tie us all together. I want you to know. So board members and staff, watch out. You're about to be tied. Rebecca Fishman Lipsy said it. This is Miami's Philanthropic Month. Turn this town purple, people, for all the organizations who are here and all of them who are out serving everyone. Thanks so much for being a part. We'll see you at Give Miami Day.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you.
all. Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.
All
Bye.
so much.